Without Tony Stark's fateful capture in Afghanistan, the age of Iron Man would never come to pass.
Tony Stark can make you feel like he's the cool exec with the heart of steel, and sometimes that's a generous assessment.
Okay.
I think I can think of something better than that.
Well, it would buy us a little time.
Tony Stark, industrialist turned superhero, has found himself thrust from the supporting role to the right chewy center of the Marvel Universe. Like a proper Marvel character, though, Tony Stark has struggled with doing the right thing or even recognizing what the right thing is. And then there are all those times that he just jumps all the way off the rails and becomes the bad guy. Like these times.
If that's true, you'll be a great man someday. I'll get the bags.
Tony Stark started off as a bad person by design. Stan Lee gave himself a bit of a challenge. He wanted to see if he could take someone completely unlikable and then turn him into a hero that people would root for. Stan the Man described the way he chose like this. It was the height of the Cold War. The readers, the young readers, if there was one thing they hated, it was the war and military. So I got a hero who represented that to the 100th degree. Stark's redemption from his war profiteering ways became an integral part of the Tony Stark story. Aside from seeing the consequences of his own weapons, Stark was also inspired by Ho Jensen sacrificing himself so that Tony could make his escape. The MCU even added a simple command.
Don't waste it. Don't waste your life.
Since then, Tony has strove to do the right thing while struggling with what exactly the right thing is. His first step towards redemption was to shift his father's company away from weapons manufacture towards technologies that would save lives. That desire to keep his weapons out of the wrong hands even led to him going around frying most of the power suits in Marvel after discovering they were operating on a stolen Stark chip. Rhodey will be featured in the new Armor Wars adaptation on Disney+. One of those times when Tony found himself intending to walk the good path and it not quite working out came in the form of the Illuminati. The name should have been a giveaway. In the wake of the Kree Skull War taking place on Earth, Stark realized that the different heroes had individual intel on the war that could have prevented it if they had shared their information. He assembled the best of their kind, Professor X of the X-Men representing the mutants, Black Bolt representing the Inhumans, Reed Richards represented science. I don't know, he's the world's smartest man. He was going to make the team. And Namor represented Atlantis. T'Challa represented a strong no. He didn't believe the group had the authority to make those decisions, and they had no clear method for resolving disagreements. He was right. T'Challa is generally right. Their attempt to discourage the Skrulls from messing with Earth led to their capture, giving the Skrulls what they needed for secret invasion. And their attempt to convince the Beyonder he was an Inhuman and have Black Bolt order him out of the dimension eventually gave the Beyonder inspiration for Secret Wars 2. Their attempt to move the Hulk to another planet resulted in them accidentally killing the Hulk's wife and unborn child while in exile, bringing the Hulk back to Earth ready to take on the entire world to smash the Illuminati that sent him into space in World War Hulk. Prior to the modern Secret Wars, Tony and the Illuminati discovered that realities were smashing into each other with Earth as their nexus point. To prevent their mutual destruction of both worlds, Stark led an effort to destroy the incoming realities unilaterally. Theoretically, that still makes him the hero of 616, but for the realities he destroyed, he's their greatest villain. One of the Illuminati's other big plans involved trying to keep anyone else from assembling the Infinity Gems into the Infinity Gauntlet. First, Reed Richards tried to destroy them the same way Thanos did in the MCU. He was less successful and in fact attracted a rebuke from Uatu the Watcher. Instead, they distributed the gems among the Illuminati so that no one knew where all six were, and they were all in the care of a potent guardian who presumably would not be tempted to use them. While that held for Earth 616, a Tony from an unnamed reality realized that the Reality Stone could undo a lot of unfortunate events. First was when a villain named Nitro claimed 800 victims during an attack. Being too much to bear, Stark used the Reality Gem to undo it. Once that seal was broken, it was just a matter of steps. During Civil War, he would start changing small things and eventually undoes the death of Bill Foster at the hand of Thor's clone Thunderstrike and Steve Rogers' assassination. He would eventually use the Reality Gem to manipulate events, having him elected president. This is undone when Maestro, the aged-up version of the Hulk, grabs that version of Tony and his Avengers to fight in his Contest of Champions. When things get out of hand, he tries to use the gem, but it doesn't work. After he ends up killing his reality's Steve Rogers, Sue Storm expands an invisible shield inside his armor, busting it apart, revealing the Reality Gem. Maestro explains that the Infinity Gems only work in their home reality before squishing President Stark. Because he's a Hulk. Presidency is so blasé when we're talking about comic book stakes. The Exiles were an ever-shifting team of variants of different heroes from different realities that would be drafted to take care of anomalies that happened in the multiverse. From Exiles 23 to 25, that involved a version of Tony Stark that didn't stop at President of the United States and went all the way in for the big prize, pushing to be elected Emperor of Earth after solving crop destruction and a series of life-saving vaccines. But you don't get to Emperor without a little bit of strong-arming, which included killing any superhero that opposed him. The only people that Emperor Stark didn't rule over were the Inhumans. The Inhumans sacrificed themselves to draw Stark's Weapon X forces so that Black Bolt could yell at them. Given that a whisper from Black Bolt is incredibly destructive, yelling destroyed everybody, including sacrificed Inhumans Stark needed for his conquest into space. A surviving group of Inhumans and Sue Storm, who was married to Black Bolt in this reality, attacked Stark, with Sue killing him and dying in the process. It's not always good to be king. At some point, the X-Men and the Avengers had gotten into a tussle that eventually led to the Scarlet Witch and Dr. Doom casting a reversed alignment spell that made all the bad guys good and all the good guys bad. There were shenanigans, alliances made and broken, but most importantly, the spell was eventually called off and everyone went back to their respective corners, except Tony Stark. It turns out Tony liked Breaking Bad so much that he shielded himself from any kinds of reverse spell that might come along so he could remain amoral. That's when he combined the two greatest evils together, drug addiction and subscription-based apps. Under the guise of a regular app, this evil or superior Iron Man addicted the population to Extremis 3 and then started charging $100 a day for a fix. To keep people from tearing down Stark Tower, brick by brick, he blackmailed people into talking up the app and building up his own robot police force. Superior Iron Man lasted until the incursions when he and Captain America went down fighting on a falling helicarrier. When Reed and Franklin Richards reassembled the multiverse, it was with the non-evil Tony Stark. Earth 5012 was a harsher world scarred by a war with a villain Titanus, making the Stark of that world less happy-go-lucky and more all business. At some point, he beefed with that world's Reed Richards, prompting him to use the suit of armor in the style of Dr. Doom to confront him. After killing the Human Torch, Reed shuffled his Tony Stark to 616, deciding this Stark was their problem now. Before being found out as not this Earth Stark, he had gathered a lot of gear to build a portal back home, powered by the mutant Paul Patterson. This landed him in jail next to a life model decoy of Diamondback. He used Diamondback to escape and then tore the android apart to make a new suit. Instead of trying to get back home, he just started wrecking stuff, including the Hero Freedom Ring, before he was finally stopped. To distinguish him from the on-brand Tony, he was called Iron Maniac. That does sound like a really good wrestling name. Basically, all ideas involving the Darkhold are bad. Scarlet Witch was assembling a group to fight Chthon in the Other Realm. Hoping to inoculate the heroes to its effect, she had them all read about their alternative versions of themselves in the Darkhold. For Tony Stark, he read about the one from Earth 21129, who returned from his adventures in the cave with more injuries than he thought should happen in a suit of armor. Figuring he couldn't avoid injury, he instead modified his armor to heal injuries. Seems like a good idea, but since the feature was AI-driven, it made the very AI decision, iron is better than flesh. So it went about replacing Tony's skin. This alarmed Pepper Happy and Jarvis, but the next day he found himself back in the suit, hooked on the pain reliever the suit doled out, allowing the suit to slowly liquefy him into an actual Iron Man. He drafted Happy and Jarvis in a plan to end human weakness by mass producing the suit. Okay, when I say drafted, I actually mean mushing the two of them together into one suit. With this Happy Jarvis combination, he spread the suits around the world, enticing people into them until they all became his own version of the Cybermen. Scarlet Witch's plan didn't work out, as the Darkhold just transmuted the heroes, reading it into their darker selves. In the Age of X, Earth 11326 featured no Professor X to advocate for the mutants. Anti-mutant sentiment peaks after an uncontrolled Dark Phoenix event levels the city, causing the mutants to be outright hunted. Foiling Magneto's plan to swap the magnetic poles, he was infected by a virus from Lionel and Madison Jeffries, better known as the brothers behind Alpha Team's Box. Like the box armor, the virus caused Tony to fuse with his suit until he became an animated corpse dubbed Steel Corpse. As Steel Corpse, he was enthusiastic in the task of killing mutants. During a raid on Fortress X, it turned out he had a limit when the system override had him targeting mutant children. After telling Steve Rogers to prioritize the children's safety, Rogers shot Steel Corpse in the back of the head. Earth 311 would like you know they've always been down, and if they've never thanked you... Oh no, wait, that's the band 311. Earth 311 supposed a world where the Age of Heroes coincided with the Age of Discovery. In this world, Tony Stark was captured during the English-Spanish War and forced by David Banner, who would later become the Hulk, to make weapons while being tortured. Carrying some understandable beef with Banner, he took the opportunity to track down the now hulked-out Banner to the New World. Landing in a Roanoke that had not collapsed, he went and messed it up on his own, looking for Banner. Before leaving, he made sure that the settlers swore allegiance to England. He would later be sworn to allegiance to the English by the shape-shifting Virginia Dare, who would also end up breaking up a fight between Lord Iron and the Hulk, who was with an indigenous tribe. Despite pleas from David Banner, the Iron Lord didn't let up until Dare transformed into a Sphinx and threatened to start eating. The MCU will soon learn Kang has plans within plans, and he really gets around using all kinds of aliases, like Immortus. As Immortus, he was able to use the neural net from the Iron Man armor to start pushing Tony into Breaking Bad. First, it was a change in attitude, and eventually led led to Iron Man killing people to not expose his dark secret. The corruption of Stark was eventually discovered, and they decided to fix it by replacing old Tony with his younger, uncorrupted self. Made sense at the time. If you're starting to do the math on how that works, don't bother. This attempt to make Tony Stark younger and hipper was undone by Franklin Richards' Marvel's walking do-over button. Tony Stark shares a trait with fellow Illuminati members Doctor Strange and Reed Richards, and assuming he's the only one who can see all the angles and therefore it falls on him to make the big call. Ultimately, this exposes the real villain living inside Tony Stark, a lack of accountability.